Hi, everybody. Today we're talking about INFJs setting unrealistic goals, too high of standards that we know we cannot reach, but we do it anyway. This is a great topic because a lot of INFJs are not aware that we actually do this, and it creates massive turmoil in our life. If I haven't met before, my name's Trina Bretnell. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy it. If you're returning, I'm so glad that you came back. I really, really appreciate you. Alrighty. Now, INFJs, we believe that those high standards and pushing as hard as we can push to achieve as much as we can achieve is actually a form of self-improvement. We believe that it is us living up to or fulfilling that potential, our life potential, but actually it's not. And we're not aware of what it does, which is why I thought this would be a fun topic to talk about. This can create a very toxic pattern in our life that does not benefit us in any way. And it's the complete opposite of what we think it's doing. It's doing the complete opposite for us, right? So when we're pushing ourselves, we're setting those huge goals and pushing ourselves, and then we fail, it triggers massive feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt. It sparks that inner critic, that inner voice that comes up that starts beating you down, that, oh, you're nothing but a failure. You can't do this. You're so stupid, blah, blah, blah. And the list goes on. I know for me, my inner voice is very nasty when it comes to stuff like this, or it can be. Then in return, it starts creating this fear that we can't live up to other people's expectations, which then you see how it just keeps snowballing. That leads to anxiety, and it really, really negatively impacts our self-esteem. Like drastically, it's horrible. So from there, what will happen is we will either push harder, which creates this toxic cycle. It's a toxic pattern of push, fail, feel bad about yourself, criticism, blah, blah, blah. Then we push, fail, feel bad about ourselves, blah, 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 blah. That will happen, which it's the perfectionism that will lead to burnout. Or it will create overwhelm. It will really dampen our motivation, leading us to losing all of our confidence. We lose our confidence. So we are very reluctant to even go and try or pursue the things that we really want to do. That fear of failure gets so strong that we shrink back down. We be that chameleon. We don't try anything that we want to do. We may see things or opportunities come up and we'll be like, no, I'm not good enough for that. I can't do it. And we won't even try. And that's because of us setting unrealistic goals and pushing so hard, and we're failing. We fail. Like when we're setting unrealistic goals and we push ourselves, we're going to fail, right? There's no way around that. We're going to fail. And that is so hard on us. That is so hard on us. So why do we do this? What makes an INFJ do this? It's childhood trauma, mostly. There's a few reasons, but this one I'm going to talk about specifically today is childhood trauma. Somewhere in our childhood, we got the message, whether it be from a teacher or caregivers or just mainstream society in general, we got the message that accomplishments and success constitute our worthiness. We probably were overpraised for an accomplishment, or when we had accomplished something, that's when we were noticed and people would praise us. Otherwise, we felt that we weren't seen as children, or we got the feeling that when we accomplished something, we were actually accepted by people. So that's how we tied our accomplishments into our self-worth. Or we received unconditional love when we would accomplish something, when we would succeed at something. We received that unconditional love that we really, really wanted. Then we internalized this belief that we had to do better, we had to be the best, we had to strive and push ourselves to be accepted, to be loved, to be worthy, to feel worthy. So over time, this created a pattern in ourselves of setting those unrealistic goals and pushing because we were striving to be accepted, to feel loved, to maybe even fit in, because we got that message somewhere along the line. We got that message. And it drives us to seek validation so that we can feel worthy. That message did. It's a very powerful message that we got, and it definitely isn't true. Our self-worth is not linked at all to our accomplishments and our achievements at all. But our self-esteem definitely is. It is linked definitely to that, especially when we fail. Our failing, and it will hack on that self-esteem. And when our self-esteem starts to drop, our self-confidence starts dropping, our love for ourselves starts dropping. In fact, we will get to a point where we start hating ourselves. I know, I was there. I was at that point where I absolutely hated who I was. I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence. Yet I would continue to set high goals, high standards for myself. However, I also had that fear of failure that would hold me back. So yes, I would set all these high goals, but I had that fear of failure mixed with that inner voice telling me that I wasn't good enough, and I wouldn't even take action. So of course I was going to fail, but I couldn't see this. I couldn't see this. It was just a bad cycle that was going around and around and around. And all I would see is that I kept failing. I'm like, well, what is going on? You're so stupid and you can't do anything and you're pathetic and what is wrong with you? And these were all the thoughts that were going in my head, right? I didn't realize that it was my pattern, a very toxic pattern of pushing myself, setting those high standards. You know what? I can't even say that I pushed myself because of that fear of failure. I didn't take the action. So I set the high standards, the high goals. I had these big dreams. And yes, I'm going to do this because I need to be accepted, right down to even when I was dating people. When I would date people and say they were divorced or they had like, everybody has a past, right? So they had like other girlfriends that they had at one time. And I always felt that I had to compete and outdo them and be better. So I would push myself. And it was never a competition. We were two very different people, but that's what I would base my acceptance from that other person on, right? My partner at the time, that's what I would base my acceptance on, is outdoing or being better than their past significant others. And it happened in jobs. I would do this, that I would get a job and I would look and see how far I could push myself to get the absolute best position I could possibly get. Even if I wasn't qualified for it, I would be like, yeah, I can do this, I can do it. And of course, it's not going to work. I'm not qualified for it. I'm definitely not going to get that promotion, right? But I couldn't see that because I was caught up in that toxic pattern of push, push, push because I wanted that acceptance. I wanted that validation. And to get that, I had to be successful. I had to be the best. But to get there, I had to push myself and do all these things that in reality, I might have been capable of it. But in reality, if I would have really stopped and asked myself, I really didn't even care deep down. It was just that I was stuck in this toxic pattern, this toxic cycle. I had no self-worth. I had no self-esteem. I had no self-confidence. I hated who I was. And it really pulls you down into a dark funk. So what do we do about it? Enough rambling, right? You're probably wondering, okay, what do we do about it? Slow down, pay attention to our limits, respect them, get to know them. That's the top thing. Learn our limits, both physically and emotionally. This is boundary work. This is why boundaries are so important for an INFJ. Not just boundaries for relationships, but boundaries in our life in general. And you know what? Not to put a damper on this, but boundaries are a lot of work for an INFJ because we struggle with them, but they're worth the work. We can learn, it's a skill and we can learn them and we need to learn them. Even when we feel uncomfortable learning them or implementing them, push through it because we really need them. We need boundaries around our time, our energy, and our commitments when it comes to this. So what do I mean by that? Don't be afraid to say no to additional responsibilities. If you're packed full and you know you can't take on anymore, you know this. Your body knows what the limits are. You need to step back and listen to it. Listen to it. If you can't take on anymore, say no. It's okay. Nobody will think less of you. And if they do, oh well, that's their problem, not yours. Listen to your body. Get to know those limits. Say no. Delegate tasks if possible, which I know I'm an INFJ. That's really hard to do. Not because we think we're perfect at it, at all the tasks. It's because a lot of times we feel bad about delegating tasks, that we're putting somebody out, but don't feel bad. Delegating tasks when possible is very healthy. And you know what? You're not putting anybody out. Lots of times, the person that you delegate the task to actually makes them feel good that you're asking them for help. And prioritize self-care. I know we hear about self-care lots across social media, blah, 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 self-care. It is super important. This is why we hear about it all the time, because it is very important for us to create that happy balance, that life that we really want. And in turn, it will reduce the pressures of constantly feeling that we need to strive for that high achievement. Prioritizing self-care. It is so important. Plus, it will help with burnout, not getting into burnout. An INFJ burnout is not a fun place to be. I've been there more than once, and I do not recommend it. So step back, listen to your body, get to know your limits physically and emotionally. That is the key to getting out of this nasty cycle of setting high standards, failing, feeling bad about yourself, and fearing that you can't ever achieve anything because you keep failing, because that's not the truth. INFJs, we are some of the most successful people in the world. So it's definitely not true, but we also have a lot of self-sabotaging going on. We can get a grasp on it. It's just about learning. That's all it is. I hope you found this helpful. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up. Feel free to share it. The more times it's shared, the more INFJs we get to help. And that's my mission, is to help as many as I possibly can, because it's an amazing personality type. And I absolutely love being an INFJ. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I ask you to please consider subscribing, because it'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.